Watch this.
Idaho is one of the last states that's held off legalizing marijuana in any capacity.
But still, I thought a floor would be a good deterrent to let the rest of the world know Idaho is not going to follow the dope future that seems to be headed in our nation.
Now, a new executive order could change how the drug is treated across the country. A local lawmaker says he's disappointed with the direction it's heading. Plus, a few new Idaho cities could be in the forecast. How an attempt at using artificial intelligence caught the attention of a national newspaper and gave the gem state some unique names. Well, late last year, President Donald Trump published an executive order directing the administration to expedite the process of reclassifying marijuana from a Schedule I to a Schedule III drug. The order moved marijuana into a tier of substances identified as having lower abuse potential, among other things. Now, the move would mean new medical research, FDA-approved marijuana products, and new paths for hemp products. To be clear, this doesn't legalize marijuana federally. We saw your comments on this. Laura in Boise wrote, does the reclassification of cannabis have an impact on the new Idaho law regarding marijuana possession? Well, the short answer, no. But maybe lawmakers in Idaho could change their stance on the issue. Also, it seems like that is a no, too. In a rare occurrence, the state Republican lawmakers are in disagreement with President Trump on the topic. In fact, recent years, we've seen lawmakers' efforts to make marijuana enforcement laws even tougher. We spoke with one of the reps this week for perspective on the debate and possibility of a ballot question for Idahoans.
I'm the chairman of House Judiciary and Rules, so I'm in charge of all the criminal laws that come through the House of Representatives. So that comes to my plate. But also, I was a prosecutor in Ada County when I was a young man, saw the damage that marijuana did to people at that time. And now, though, the marijuana is so much more potent than it was only a few years ago, where people used to be able to take some drags on a joint, and it wasn't that potent. Now, some of this marijuana, one drag can incapacitate you from being safe to operate machinery or a motor vehicle. It's a real public safety issue. And most Idahoans that I know don't want to legalize marijuana, especially my district.
The mandatory minimum that was passed, I guess, 2 years ago now, what was the concept behind that, and kind of what message were you hoping to deliver with it when it became law?
Well, it was wanted by some of my police officers, and it was a judge who actually came to me and asked me to set a minimum. He said because it was all over the place. We had one case where it was a $2.50 fine to someone in possession of marijuana. There were other circumstances in that case. But still, I thought a floor would be a good deterrent to let the rest of the world know Idaho is not going to follow the dope future that seems to be headed in our nation. Although now the medicine and science are starting to show in these other states where it's been legalized that it wasn't a very good idea. And I believe it's Massachusetts and some other states are looking to repeal their marijuana laws that allows marijuana. So I think the trend is going that direction, except for the surprise by the executive order from our president.
Yeah, the executive order from President Trump rescheduling it, or trying to accelerate the rescheduling of it from a Schedule I to a Schedule III drug. What was your reaction when you saw that executive order?
Well, as a state representative, as a former prosecutor, as a voter in Idaho, I was very disappointed in the executive order. It does not follow the medicine, the science, and the societal damage that legalizing marijuana shows us is now happening across the nation. So I was very surprised by that.
Is there anything that Idaho can do to kind of push back on that? Or does this, I mean, for the average Idahoan, what do you think this means?
Well, at least in the immediate future, there's not going to be any change to Idaho laws. The executive order is not going to affect how we enforce our laws on marijuana. So although there's a lot of talk, I don't think anything's going to really change in the next year. We're going to have, of course, our initiative that's coming forward, a couple of those. If the marijuana people get their signatures, that could change things. We'll just have to wait and see.
I know I had heard from some folks that supported the president's executive order and said this makes it, I guess, easier to research for medical purposes. And as you touched on, the citizen initiative that they want to legalize it, I guess, just for medicinal purposes. What's your reaction in terms of just using it as a pharmaceutical that would be prescribed?
We already have 4 forms of marijuana in pharmaceutical pill form, but people don't really want it that much because it doesn't get you high. Let's cut to the chase. People want to legalize marijuana, medicinally or otherwise, so they can get high. Not everyone, but a lot of them, that is the case. And we know that. Why? Not because I say so, because it's happened in every other state. Suddenly, every young man in his 20s has a chronic back condition that requires him to get marijuana.
Now, Skog doesn't believe lawmakers will work on a resolution, or as we know it, a formal letter to disagree with Trump's decision during this session. But Trump's executive order won't change Idaho policy. That is, unless voters do it themselves. In today's 411, human remains located in Idaho, the future of the West Valley Humane Society, and high risk of avalanche danger. But first, the woman accused of failing to report the death of her 12-day-old baby appeared at the Canyon County Courthouse this morning. Allison Armenta arrived in shackles and an Orange Canyon County Jail jumpsuit for a hearing that lasted about 2 minutes. Her alleged co-defendant and husband, Brian Lemke, did not appear. His hearing is set for January 13th. Nothing was decided in the hearing. It was just an initial appearance. She'll be in court next for a status hearing on February 4th. Well, crews found human remains after digging up ground near the Givens Hot Springs area. The Owyhee County Sheriff's Office says the remains were found at a private construction site. The coroner's office, along with forensic anthropologists, determined the remains are of Native American origin. The sheriff's office says there is no evidence of foul play. Since the remains are considered historic, the site has been transferred to the Idaho State Historical Society. As of today, the West Valley Humane Society is no longer accepting animals from the public at the shelter. In a statement, West Valley says it's received no information from Canyon County on a transition plan. In December, commissioners selected a nonprofit called Copper Quill Haven to take over operations. West Valley protested the decision. The Humane Society also announced today its new partnership with PetSmart. It plans to open a physical adoption location inside the PetSmart on Milwaukee in March. And high avalanche danger, in the Sawtooth and Western Smoky Mountains. The Sawtooth Avalanche Center says there is considerable danger in Banner Summit, Galena Summit, and the Eastern Mountains. So make sure to check the conditions before hitting the backcountry. And that's the 411. Well, do you ever wonder how we find our stories, how we track down the people we need to talk to, and what it takes to uncover the truth? Well, this brings us to our Reporter's Notebook, where we pull back the curtain on how journalism really works. Our Morgan Romero spent a month investigating a local contractor. Well, then he got arrested. Bringing in Morgan now. Morgan, the big question I have for you right now is just how did you find about the story?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes a lot of people come to us with story ideas. We seek out story ideas, but people also tip us off on our 7 Investigates email address, which is always really helpful. We appreciate that. But I heard from several alleged victims. They reached out about this guy, Seth Waddell. He's a local contractor, and I saw people posting about it on social media. So that really set off a red flag in my brain, and I said, this is something we need to look into, because quite frankly, we do hear about contractors all the time. And in Idaho, in a fast-growing area where a lot of people are hiring contractors right now, you hear about these shady individuals, right, who are taking people's money and not doing or finishing work. And so that's what played out here. And so I talked to a lot of people. I started digging around. I got the phone numbers for several alleged victims, and I talked to several of them for days. I then went on and I interviewed some of these alleged victims. I was told and given a list of 30 names of alleged victims, like spanning all across.
30 people going through this.
30 people going through this in the state of Idaho, southwest Idaho, allegedly, right? At this point, he has been charged. He has not been convicted in this case. But all that to say, I talked to all these people. I filed public records requests for police reports. I got a lot of records from the Ada County Sheriff's Office in other cases as well. People sent me screenshots of messages of conversations that they had with this individual. I also looked up previous court cases that Seth Waddell had been involved in, small claims cases that people had taken him to small claims court over, and civil cases as well in Idaho.
It's like the list is unraveling.
Yes.
It's unfortunate that this many people are having to suffer before, some of this starts to get uncovered.
Totally.
I also want to know, what did you find out? How are homes and business owners, what are they saying that he did?
Yeah, so really what they say, and this is kind of his MO across the board, is what they're alleging, is that he would ask people to sign a contract. He'd ask for a deposit, which was half of what they owed. So for example, if he was going to build you a deck and it was going to cost you 40 grand, he'd ask for 20 grand up front for materials, right?
Yeah.
There is no law explicitly stating in Idaho what a contractor is and is not allowed to do. I will say, quite frankly, I'm going through a process right now where I haven't had to pay my contractor anything. And he's started the work, and his subcontractors have started the work. So anyway, for people that was between $10,000 and one woman, $200,000 she paid.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So it like spans the gamut of the amount of money that people had given this guy. And they say they would text him, they would call him, he wouldn't respond, he would come up with excuses.
Ghosted.
Ghosted, exactly. Yeah. And eventually they said, you know what, this isn't normal. I give up. I'm going to file a complaint with the Attorney General's office, with the Idaho Division of Occupational and Professional Licenses, which they did. Several of them also filed police reports because at the end of the day, he was charged with 3 counts of felony grand theft. And so they did have a big case, law enforcement, to present to prosecutors to be able to prove that this is what they're accusing him of doing. And one of those individuals who filed a police report is a man who lives in Boise with his family, Sam Rolifson. Take a listen.
We know of at least 30 people that are personally victims of Seth Waddell and similar practices. Either he did partial work or he didn't do, in our case, any work at all and just absconded with the money. People are strapped for money and they've saved up, and oftentimes their whole life to get just a project done for their house. And instead of coming home to a remodeled deck or a new kitchen, they now have to eat this cost because someone decided just to leave with the money and steal it.
Yeah, makes me feel pretty cynical, like you can't trust people.
It is so unfortunate because there are so many good contractors out there too.
There's trustworthy people out there.
Yeah.
But this is a bad situation.
Yes, exactly. And Rolifson says, like he mentioned, in our case, they didn't do any work at all. In some people's cases, another individual I talked to, he did some of the work in this video you're seeing right here. They hired a different company, so this is all from a different company. But Waddell's company came out and actually demoed the deck, but then didn't come back after that, which was unsafe, right? So Seth Waddell, I did discover, worked in Washington State before Idaho. I dug into labor records there showing he has multiple unpaid liens, lawsuits, and license violations in Washington State. Interestingly, of note, in Idaho, complaints are not public, but discipline is if that ever occurs. So I will be watching to see if the board at the Idaho Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing takes any action against Waddell and his companies in the coming months.
I mean, that's incredible, one, to look outside the state, right? Because you think everybody just stays local, but it's not the case.
No.
Obviously, could potentially be running from something.
Exactly.
So I think we also mentioned earlier that Waddell was arrested. So the big question, when did that happen and what's that process look like?
Yeah, so that happened in mid-December. And you mentioned that I'd been working on the story for a month. I was planning on turning it this month. And then when he got arrested, I said, we need to expedite this process and get this story out here. So he was charged with 3 counts of grand theft, as I mentioned. Today, actually, we were in court as he had his preliminary hearing, but it was rescheduled for January 28th. This is video of that virtual hearing. His defense attorney mentioned they have a lot of evidence to go through, and the state is, quote, screening for more victims in this case.
Okay, so you've also posted this on social media.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of feedback from that as well. Have you heard from other victims potentially?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
I've heard from a lot of people, Facebook, email, TikTok, Instagram, so many people messaging me saying the same thing happened to them. And not only are they accusing Seth Waddell, but I'm hearing from a lot of people about other contractors in Idaho too. So this is a seemingly rampant systemic problem that I'm actually looking into right now, and I will be interviewing Idaho DOPL as well as a local business attorney to talk about what homeowners can do to protect themselves from shady things, and then also if Idaho, maybe the legislature, can take any steps to protect homeowners as well.
I think that's the biggest question, and as you keep unfolding all of these layers, I think that's the big question that even me as a homeowner, I want to know. How do you stay aware and away from those kind of contractors?
It's super important, and right now, especially as people just choose to stay in their homes because our housing market is so expensive. So many people are doing home projects, and it's so important that a lot of these homeowners are saying, just spend the money to do a background check on these folks, look at other states that they've lived. I'll have all of that in an upcoming story.
Yeah, Morgan, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
glanced at the National Weather Service wind map that went out on social media this weekend and thought, wait, how have I not lived in Idaho, or how have I lived in Idaho my whole life? And somehow I didn't know any of these towns. Well, you're not alone. And if you didn't see it, well, take a look. Here it is. This is the AI-generated wind forecast for Camas Prairie, posted on the National Weather Service's social media accounts. Look really, really close. You're gonna see Orange O Tild. That had a 10% chance of high winds. And just south, my personal favorite, Whattabod. Would you be safe? They were very safe from those wind gusts there. Or what about this one? Okay, somebody's gonna have to correct me on that one because there's no way I can get that one right. So we checked in with the National Weather Service, who says the agency is experimenting with artificial intelligence to speed up graphics and make forecasts easier to understand for the public. AI isn't commonly used for their content, but it's exploring ways to employ it to inform the public.
That message is coming from trained meteorologists in this case that are trying to give you information, help you make good decisions for you and your family and those that you care about, your business, whatever the case may be. And so that's where the message is coming from. AI is a tool to try to help it to land better. In this case, obviously, it didn't land very well. So lessons learned, and we'll work towards improving that in the future.
Okay, so the wind forecast was real, but the town names not so much. The internet, though, got a chuckle. The Weather Service got a lesson, and Idaho still has the same town names it had yesterday. Well, while Whattabod is unfortunately not a real Idaho town.
Though it does have a ring to it.
Yeah.
Whattabod. Yeah.
Whattabod, you know? Well, there are some city names that are almost too good or too weird to be true. So we're going to test our knowledge right here, bringing in Rachel for that challenge.
Okay, I'm
You're the
ready.
meteorologist. You have to, right?
I'm ready. Here comes the quiz. I know, but Idaho does have a lot of kind of obscure little towns.
Yes.
And I'm not familiar with every single one, so you're going to test me.
Yes.
And see how we do.
Okay.
Real versus fake.
Yes. Okay, we're going to start with bone versus vein.
This one I know. Bone is the real name.
All right, well, bring up the real
Right?
answer. Where is it?
Did I get it right?
Let's see. Stay tuned. Drum roll. It
Okay,
is Bone.
Idaho. Yes,
You
I
nailed
have
that.
seen photos from Bone, Idaho, in our Weather Watchers page, so that's how I know that.
Sounds like a good haunted place
Right?
to go.
Ooh,
Bone.
I like it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, moving to the next one. Gouged eye or kicked knee?
This one I have no idea. I'm gonna go with kicked knee.
Okay, well, both are painful. The right answer is gouged eye.
Gouged eye. Later
more-
renamed to
Yeah,
Riggins,
that
it
makes more
says.
sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Riggins, formerly gouged eye. That's a fun little tidbit. Did not know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And if you've ever been to North Idaho, you might know this one. Is it cul-de-sac or dead end?
I have spent very little time in northern Idaho. I'm gonna say it's dead end.
I like that answer, but unfortunately, it is
It's
cul-de-sac,
cul-de-sac, isn't it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, it's catchy. It's festive. Okay, this is the last one. Is it Tensed or Angry Idaho?
Oh, I think I know this one. I think it's what looks like tensed, but it's
Yes.
tensed. I think that's the real one. I'm
You are the
99%
winner.
sure.
You are the winner. That's, what, 2 for 2?
50%.
Yeah.
50%. Okay.
We like hearing that.
Not bad.
Well, so those are just a handful. We're pretty, I mean, tensed, angry,
Yeah.
but it's tensed.
And you can pronounce them all. That's different from a lot of
Yeah.
small towns like Mackay and
Yeah.
Leadore and things like that, and Cambie that on a map,
Yeah.
don't look like how they're pronounced. So at least you gave me
Exactly.
some that I could pronounce. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a
well,
good quiz.
You nailed it.
Learned
okay,
a little
so
something.
Yeah, some of those handful towns in Idaho have more unique names. So let's take a look back at how one of those towns, that would be Tensed, not angry, got its name.
Way up north along the western edge of Idaho sits the city they call the gateway to McCroskey State Park, a town with a name that, well, isn't really what it looks like.
Tensed.
Not tensed.
Correct. It is not tensed.
It would be tough to be tensed in a town with just 123 people in it.
I don't know where those people are at, but that's what the sign says, so.
And it's a pretty place, too, with the Palouse to the west and St. Joe National Forest to the east.
Yeah, a real beautiful area.
A place where people would go to relax instead of if they were tensed, maybe.
Yes, exactly.
A full-fledged city, complete with a city hall, a church, a bar, a bakery, and a little store they call the Big Store, with stuff galore. So you see, basically laid back.
That's kind of the joke, I mean, we are tensed here, but
Karen Owen has lived here for 17 years.
I don't know everything, even though I am a librarian.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why we wanted to ask her How did Tensed get to be, well, Tensed? Way back when the Panhandle people were tired of living intense, they needed a moniker for the new metropolis. So they went with De Smet. You know, after Pierre-Jean de Smet, the well-known Jesuit missionary who was kind of a big Belgian deal in the area a while back. But that title was already taken by the town just a mile and a half away. Oops. So someone came up with the brilliant idea of spelling De Smet backwards.
But when the name change reached the officials or wherever, it was misprinted as Tensed with an N instead of the M.
Another oops. And the town of Tensed never looked back or tried to change it back.
I don't know, how would you say it if there was an M?
Tempsed. I like Tensed actually better. Because then we can joke about it. We're tensed. Ah!
Well, actually, they're really relaxed about their mistaken identity.
Well, I guess for not known for anything else, but you're known because you've been misspelled.
Well, I guess that's okay.
A cold front on the move from the west is already bringing some moderate rain to the Treasure Valley, light snow to the Magic Valley, and will continue light snow in the mountains overnight tonight. As temperatures cool, there's even the possibility late this evening, maybe around 11 tonight, maybe midnight, quick shot of snow possible in the Boise area, especially close to the foothills. That rolls out. We could wake up to a light coating of snow tomorrow. Will be cold and breezy in the valleys with very light snow continuing in the mountains. So morning lows in the upper 20s across the Boise area and Twin Falls with breezy winds. Wind chills will feel like we're in the teens and 20s. And 7-day outlook shows that after that, we start seeing those conditions taper off as we see stagnant conditions setting in for the weekend and beyond into next week.
Well, thanks for joining the 208. We'll catch you next time.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.